I was going to say 49. Cleantech45. So we started it approximately a month ago now, in order to discuss the topics that are setting trends for the clean tech sector. It's a lot about regulation, but also other strong external influencers for the sector and the companies that are active in the sector. Today, we're tackling a new topic, which is ESG regulation. ESG regulation regarding reporting on companies' environmental impact. We want to see it under two angles. First of all, what kind of obligations does it bring to companies? How are the companies coping with it? And also, what kind of opportunities does it create? Because when we're talking about clean tech companies, they are here to provide the solutions that help us bring the economy into the planetary boundaries. So let's look at those two angles. I am Kadi from Cleantech Estonia, and with me today we have Marika Dahl from the Ministry of Finance of Estonia, who is responsible for the policy making regarding the ESG regulation and reporting. Hello, Marika.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. And we have with us also Katrin from ESGrid, who is providing solutions for compliance with ESG regulation. And we're going to hear way more about it soon. Hello, Katrin.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming, Marika and Katrin. Let's dive directly into the heart of the topic. Maybe, Marika, you can start by telling us, so what regulates ESG reporting for companies today, and what are they really obliged to do regarding it?
Maybe I start even a little further. I would say that for years or even decades, there has been lots of voluntary guidelines and standards, and it has been kind of like area like maybe only more motivated companies have been kind of been involved, but then European Union really took the drive and wants to be kind of like this the world part that really is concentrating on the sustainability, and therefore we have a corporate sustainability reporting directive. It was adopted last year in January, and now currently all the member states are transposing it to their local legislation, as are we. It is a regulation that expects large companies mainly to do the among their annual report also sustainability report. Large companies, they're really like only like a very small part of our economy, and there are maybe maximum 300 companies who will be reporting based on that regulation. But that doesn't mean that they are really only ones who are affected. And the large companies here are the ones that have the sales of 50 million and assets of more than 25 million and also more than 250 employees. So they really are the largest of ours. But at the same time, there are a few, but they kind of accumulate almost like 40% of Estonian economy. So they really have effect what is going around our economy and going outwards.
And can I ask, among those companies, so we have like big corporates, but we also have financial players, right?
Well, yes. I mean, I think that majority of them are really the production companies, and also we have lots of retailers, both kind of like the ones that like Rimi or Selver, but also the who got like wholesales. But those are the two kind of biggest sectors that are affected by that regulation. What expects them is that they will have to create that report based on the new standards. Before it was really kind of open. You could write basically what you wanted, what made you look better. Now it's regulated. We have standards for 12 standards for large companies. They cover environmental matters. There are 5 of them. There are water, there is a pollution, climate change. Then we have social matters standards, and also the corporate governance standards. How to kind of pull everything together and lead to like a business activities that are sustainable for environment, and also like they can count the people who are in this business operations. Yeah,
And
so.
how about the timeline that we're looking at? When is the obligation going to be really effective?
At first, it was really like everybody at once and very quickly. I would say right now it's step by step. Already some companies, there are 8 of them in Estonia, have to report this year for the 2024. So their reports will be early next year. Then the second batch is all the other large companies. There are maybe those 200 companies. I would say also the companies that report this year, they are a little in advantage to the next batch, because these are the companies who have been reporting already some environmental and social matters. They had this kind of lenient obligation before too. The following year is the ones that you really have to kind of, if they haven't done it voluntary or coming from certain demands from the market, they have to start kind of start.
How many Estonian companies are already reporting on environmental impact?
Well, I think that many, we don't have the statistics. I mean, I think that, environmental reporting outside of the ESG is already kind of implemented a long time. If you have some kind of environmental permits, then you report. So it is not something completely like out of blue, we don't know what it is, or even like the social matters, like all the companies, especially big companies, if you have many employees, you deal with the employee matters, whether it's the I don't know, average salaries or the pay gap or even like, I don't know, the safety of the workplace. These are the matters that have been there. It's just now they have to be assessed what is really important. We really want to know in those reports what is important. Where is your impact and where are your big risks? Like, we don't want to know what's kind of small things. You have to do all those small things as well. But in this report, just tell where is your impact, like where you matter.
So the rules are getting more precise, giving a stronger framework for the reporting. Katrin, how do you see it? Where do companies need help in this reporting? And how can Escrete help them?
Yeah, I was thinking about back to what Marika said about many companies already doing it for years, actually. And I've seen a few of them closer. Previously, actually, yes, they do. So many companies already, bigger companies already publish reports. And here's where sustainability versus ESG maybe come in, and it's good to make the distinction between two. So ESG indeed is a huge number of data points, very precise data points when it comes to reporting, right? So, and I think the first thing where companies need help is, to understand what those are. They are indeed, as Marika said, also based on double materiality analysis for the company, which kind of is a very pretty profound analysis around what are the ESG impacts of material importance for your precise business, where you act in terms of what you do in your business, to your community, etc. But also how do the external factors impact you? So it is still a brave new world, so to say. I think companies are yet to get used to it, and also many have already done it in a slightly different and voluntary framework in past. I think it takes a bit of time to get used to the new, very precise regulations there. So Now we were talking about bigger companies, right? 8 this year and then maybe 200-300 from next year onwards. There is so much more companies that do not fall into those brackets, right? They are SMEs. They do not, in many cases, do anything today. They don't have the resources, the capability, and also the regulatory push directly. However, it is really important to know and notice that as part of those regulations, actually, they also need to start thinking about it, and better sooner than later, because large companies that need to report or want to report their full impact, they do need to consider their value chains. They need to consider also their partners, their suppliers, because that is part of their business in terms of environmental impact as well as social impact and so on and so forth. So how to start that? Where to start that? So here's what ESG does. For instance, in a nutshell, we are providing a digital platform for companies, ESG assessments and gap analysis. At present, we do that for larger companies for their value chains. So once again, there's a larger company that needs to get certain data, understanding of what happens in their value chain in terms of what their partners and suppliers do for environment, for social matters, for ethical governance, and so on. We provide regulatory framework aligned questionnaires that can be fulfilled on our platform. Both companies, the requester as well the one that fills it in, gets a good comprehensive report back when it comes to, where do they stand in terms of what is the sort of broad basic framework for ESG processes, policies, actions that are needed or requested from them. We try to do that in a simple way as possible because the area is new, a lot of words, definitions, etc. are new there. Anything from, scope-free emissions to biodiversity. What does it actually mean? What do I have to answer? What do I have to do? We try to support companies that are usually smaller or medium enterprises in the process. And yeah, as a result, we hope we provide the big companies with certain data that gives them an overview of their value chain and also possibility to start nudging that value chain towards, next steps in ESG and then positive outcomes, and also awareness to the SME, for instance, filling in that questionnaire, what is expected from them? What is this ESG? What does it consist of? Environmental, social, and governance factors. What more precisely is there?
It's actually a very smart system where the regulator is regulating only the bigger players, but then down the value chain we get the whole all of the companies on board actually on ESG reporting. But ESG reporting is definitely an obligation that we have to comply with. And I like the way that ESG is really helping the smaller companies to come along with it, because when we look at the market, there's quite a lot of consulting companies, auditing firms that are already actively proposing solutions to very big companies. But where we're oftentimes lacking solutions is the SMEs, the smaller companies that cannot and should not put that much money and energy into the reporting side of it, right? Katrin, when you look at the SME needs regarding reporting, but also bringing the information they get from their environmental impact analysis, to bringing that into life, to actually making changes that make them more environment friendly, what kind of solutions are still missing? What do you see that is still lacking for both for them to more comfortably, more easily comply with the regulation that indirectly obliges them to report on it, but also the solutions that allow to bring to life the environmental impact reducing?
I think it still starts from the assessment of the present situation, right? So where am I overall when it comes to environmental or social and community management and then governance matters? What we have thought about in Escrit, and yes, indeed, we try to help those smaller and medium-sized companies precisely because data about their ESG is currently completely lacking, right? They don't report, they don't, as I said, in many cases, do not have resources to deal with that or even think about that. So what we, for instance, again, to provide the opportunity to have some sort of a basis data from where to decide what next steps to take. We actually want to do product development in Escrit now, and we want to launch potentially in the coming couple of weeks already self-assessment for SMEs, which is a kind of a basic assessment questionnaire focusing on the different key issues of ESG in line with voluntary sustainability reporting standards for non-listed SMEs. So voluntary standards, but still, where, yeah, it's kind of a SME ESG health check, as we call it. So if you fill it in, you can basically see where do you stand, what are you already doing, what, again, processes, activities, policies, etc. you could be doing. And that can serve as a basis for you to start thinking about those things. And also for you to know what your partners, bigger partners, cooperation partners, funding partners, for that matter, if they are not already asking from you, they will definitely ask from you in a quite close future. I can bet on that. So.
Yeah, Marika, when you look at the regulation, what do you think, what kind of questions are the big partners going to be asking from smaller companies like clean tech companies or also other SME companies? Like, um, uh, I'm asking that question from the perspective of seeing what kind of economic value could the smaller players that have clean tech solutions be providing for the bigger ones who have to comply with ESG regulation and who want to bring down their environmental impact. Where does this value creation economically happen?
Well, I think that, there are many stakeholders who will be asking. What will be asking depends what is required of them. The banks will be asking what isn't required of them. Then the investors, they want the information that they can make their decisions where to invest and etc. But I would even think of kind of like if I would be a company and I want to kind of do a business in certain matters, like how the sustainability in it is kind of like, is it a core, and how kind of like, because I think that maybe right now that you can operate in many markets or in many sectors and it's okay, but maybe in 10 years you cannot. I understand that clean tech is really like thriving, to change the technology that is more efficient. It's with a less environmental impact. But I think that all the sectors kind of need to go there, and I think that it is a reporting requirement we're talking about here, but in essence, it is not really. It's really the risk assessment tool for the companies, and I think that there is no such one regulation coming that says like how to become sustainable. You kind of have to figure it out yourself.
How about the green taxonomy? Is
Well,
that the meter we're
in
using?
a way, I think that it is a scary document because it's very long. But again, starting a company or doing any kind of investment, I would go directly there looking like if it is like I'm buying and planning to buy some technology and it is also considered, I don't know, brown. Like, why would you invest in it? Because in 10 years, at first you don't get money for that. And then in 10 years, you cannot use it anyway. And so I think that, would be something that every company should kind of look into if their sector is kind of like there and like which way to go. And yes, it kind of shows like the direction, the focus, where to go. But yeah, in a way it is. I think it's hard because the matters they are the world in itself, like the whole environmental dilemma and the social dilemmas. Like, I don't know how many people are kind of experts on human rights. Like, we want to have all those rights, but do we really know? them.
Yeah.
So, but the companies really need to understand the risks that are involved, because risks always come at the end to the money. And it's like, sometimes, resource efficiency, whether it is the reporting or in productions in general, it's like sometimes I think like if now they do this resource audits, and then they're like, why didn't they think of it before? Like, why were they wasting, kind of like? But then again, technologies improve, the knowledge is improved, and so certain stuff wasn't available before that is available now, and those efficiencies can and really come from that. Maybe I'm thinking that, I think I'm thinking technologies that are really like two parts. One is that all those like the big matters, that is the pollution, climate change, water, circular economy. I think there are abundance of technologies that can kind of help those kind of problematic situations that we're dealing with. And just come up with the idea and trying to find the best solution to that, to kind of help the companies. Then this reporting, there are most likely also opportunities, but this is really the kind of the last piece in this process of kind of understanding like who you are, like where is your impact, kind of where you should be your targets. But yeah.
So we see that the big companies are definitely, they're obliged, but they also have the economic interest to do it, because it allows them to find efficiency, right? Increase their
Absolutely.
efficiency.
And yeah, and I think that, if they don't, like, I mean, they might be able to operate right now as is, but in the future, if they don't find employees who kind of like, because their values don't reflect the values of the young employees, or they cannot keep the good employees because they are not happy there for some reason. If all like regulations get harder and harder because the situation is getting worse and worse, then it really comes to down like whether it's profitable to make business.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. I think that comparison to sort of daily, normal, ordinary risk management process is very valid in terms of ESG. I also truly believe that ESG, well, reporting obligations are sort of a backwind, of course. They bring this topic, to the surface. They make companies in a way to deal with that and so on. But I think in essence, ESG or evaluating your business, running your business, sort of considering seriously environmental impact, social impact, as well as normal, transparent, ethical governance, it's a way to go, right? And it is truly a risk management. So if you currently do not consider climate risks to your business, and everybody can probably see that climate change is there, right? We can see how the storms are getting fiercer. We can see the temperature fluctuations, etc. It has an impact. If you have a physical infrastructure, it very likely already has an impact. You need to manage it differently. You need to think about its resilience differently, and so on. The same goes for social part of ESG, right? Human rights, as was mentioned, both in your own company as well as in your value chain. If those are not protected, if there is a case of severe disruption or sort of breaking of human rights, not good, right? Might also kill your business in future. The same goes for governance. We have so many cases at hand where this has, not worked out very well if governance is not run well. So in that sense, when I'm thinking about opportunities, I kind of picture, and maybe that's idealistic, but still I picture ESG being normal part of running businesses in future. And that also very normally means that that type of partnerships, technologies, ideas are super needed for companies of different size and scope and scale. In order to either, be better environmentally, socially, whatever, in their own processes internally, or for their customers, their services, products to be greener, and so on and so forth. And really, there is abundance. I mean, anything to help with emissions reduction, to mitigating pollution, resource optimization. We had a discussion with Marika earlier here about IoT and then 5G and all those new technologies, where sensors can really help you to optimize the usage of different resources, which is a super key thing to have, like water resources, energy resources, and so on and so forth. So that type of solutions are definitely needed and requested further and furthermore in future. But I think you also very rightly pointed out social matters and topics, like exactly human rights, diversity, equal opportunities, employee engagement. What are the options for new, better options for providing all that, assuring all that, working with that for companies, for instance?
Yeah. Well, that's a good place where to tell to younger listeners that clean tech is a very good sector to come into, I think. Because what I hear from clean tech companies day in and day out is that we are lacking human resources. We need more people coming to the sector because they are hiring a lot. They are developing very rapidly. And actually, they have very high value added jobs because it is very high tech industry and it's very deep tech, very science related industry, so to say, the clean tech industry. But maybe I would come also back to the kind of the obligation side, because when I talk to clean tech companies, then there's oftentimes this frustration, especially from the startup side, who are saying everyone's asking from the impact assessments. We're only doing impact assessments and we have no time to develop our actual product that has a positive impact, which I can understand from one point. On the other hand, you are in an industry where this is obligatory, right? So I see several different actors who are asking them to show their impact. It's of course investors, and here investors have different demands. It's not standardized in a way. Every investor has kind of a different level of detail they want to go into. And then we have also the subsidies for and very early stage companies that come and ask for some sort of a public support. They already need to show what impact they have on the environment, on climate, which makes sense because the state also wants to make sure that their money is going to the right place and it has a positive impact. But do you feel like there's enough solutions, or do you think there's something still to be done on that end?
If I may start, I think there's a lot of inefficiency in that area right now. Indeed, as you're saying, like many companies ask their partners, the ones they're funding, the ones they're cooperating with or supporting with, etc. They ask for certain impact criteria or picture. It is done in a very different ways, as you said, like different questionnaires here and there, different formats, very one-way communication usually. So you as a small company get that Excel, for instance, where you need to provide certain data, certain estimations or analysis. You send it back, you don't get any feedback on that and so on. So that is one of the things we try to solve in Escrit. So we would actually like to have a platform where this type of data, indeed on a basic level, because there is a basic common level. It's based on regulations, it's based on the market needs and so on and so forth, is gathered from companies, and those companies can actually easily, first of all, they can understand what they're asked for, but they can also easily share that data with other askers or other counterparties who are asking for more or less the same. And then, of course, there's maybe some modularity on top of it. So some partners ask for some specifics, some ask for another kind of specifics that can be built on top of the basic data. But yeah, today, I think by far too much time is spent on it and too much resource. It can be done much more simply and efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
If I may, my thoughts on those impacts assessment, I think it's kind of like where we are going even further. If all the large companies will have to kind of reduce their impacts, they can they say most of the impacts are in the value chain, not within their own operations. So they will be asking for every supplier, like, how will you diminish my impact, my footprint? So in a way, like, even if you are kind of like a small technology provider, you have to say like how your activities like gets with to be in carbon neutral or zero footprint or whatever it is, but also your product, like how this product will diminish of something that they need. I think that's if it's already done, it's probably gonna get even larger, I would say.
And this is where all the companies actually can create new value streams, new products, services. They just need to pinpoint what their partners see as the kind of positive or lesser negative environmental impact to be made. So I think it makes sense, this approach of Escrit, to kind of gather that data so that everyone knows in their value chain where the negative impact is made, because this is where we need the solutions, right? So I feel like if there's people who want to start a clean tech company and they don't have an idea yet, maybe this is where to look into, look into the ESG reports that you can find, and see where the negative impact is, because this is where we need the solutions, right?
Absolutely. I think that the companies who are starting, they're struggling to understand. But then if you really come with a solution and you say, okay, these are the risks and I can help you here, and I do this and that. And third thing, not just that you give like the tool, but then also that you explain, and they don't have to do all that research. I think that's something really, really valuable. And then as for the reporting, I think that, the companies, their reporting system for ESG is quite at the beginning, then if you have the financial reporting that has been established for decades and put a lot of money into it and resources, then the question is like are we going to do it the same way, or can we do it smarter? In a way, because yes, they're both reporting systems, but they are not very similar in a way. But I think that there would have to be the kind of like the automated and smart systems. And whether it comes to data collection or the analysis or the like how the reporting can be interactive, because okay, right now we will have this again, like maybe 50-70 page report, very static, kind of like the old world in a way, but that's what we have. But then when you have the social matters there, and it's mostly about the workers in your company or in the value chain, it's like I mean, your employees will not be reading that report. You need to kind of come up how they would get that information more interactively, faster. How you reach this Bangladesh worker who is kind of like doing your sub kind of contractor work, and also the control, because the reports need to be audited, and if it needs to be audited, it needs to be done very well, so the auditors can actually base their opinions on the top of that.
It's very interesting. The point you're making is basically that this kind of ESG reporting and the data you get out of it's not only a tool for the like the C-level management who can make a decision to change their the company strategy or something. It should be a tool for every worker to see where they can make a positive environmental impact and where they could have new partners, perhaps providing solutions for that. And that makes me ask, for Escrit, who are the main when you talk to companies, who are the main kind of positions that you talk to? Who is the most implicated in this regarding your product, actually? Because you help them understand and report on their ESG. Do you see your customers also trying to use it all over the company in all positions to kind of implement and make economic value also out of what is found there.
I surely hope that will be the case going forward. At present, my experience with ESG, and I worked with larger companies as well for quite a long time in my life, and their sustainability. The interest and dedication to ESG needs to start from C-suite, so from the highest level of the company, because then it gets, the vision that I presented earlier, then it gets integrated, hopefully, to the strategy, daily processes, risk management. It's not going to be a separate silo in the company that somebody or somebody's just run as a parallel world. Our contacts today, like hands-on contacts, they are usually either ESG managers, quality managers, environmental managers. So it can be a managerial or a specialist level in the company that is more hands-on involved in the reporting. However, the data, the reports, the gap analysis presented is, of course, hopefully used much more largely in the company, and can be also, of course, presented externally. And that is in a way the vision of ESGrid. We would really like those smaller and medium-sized companies that come to the platform today as part of supply chain, as suppliers or partners for bigger companies, really get that basic data, their kind of sustainability ID, so to say, that they can use for different purposes, their own improvements, but also for external communication, for talking to their employees, their partners, and so on and so forth. So I think that, yeah, that should be the future. Today, I see sustainability reports or ESG reports as a communication tool, mostly used still by larger companies. I know that's done quite a lot, and both in terms of positives as well as improvement needs. So I think this has become also better in years, that companies actually want to disclose, what is not there yet. Maybe they have a gender pay gap, and they need to work with that due to different reasons, right? Or maybe they're not yet there when it comes to emissions and environmental footprint, and they need to work with that. So what is one of the trends also in communication around those matters, I think, and we all know there is anti-ESG movement, there is a reaction against like those green claims and so on. So there's more of authentic information about it. So where are we? What are we doing? Where are we already pretty good? What are we still missing? So whenever you communicate about that to your employees, talents that you want to employ, or your customers and so on, I think one of the suggestions would be, do it honestly. It works much better. So.
Yeah, that's a very good signal to be given. I think do it honestly so it makes value for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I see that we have a question that came to the chat room, and I wanna tell everyone listening that you can ask your questions in the chat room, and we'll try to address them. So a question that came from Yuri is, how far away are we from ESG and sustainability green claims auditing? So we have this recent regulation that came out, right, about the green claims. The due diligence, I think it's called.
Well, I think that, both of those regulations are still kind of like, for the due diligence, now we have the directive, but then I think it was 2 years for adoption, and then, it takes some time. There will be oversight and etc. For the green claims, they are still in the discussions, I think, in the council in Europe. So we can expect a few years until kind of it comes into force. But I think that there are still very clear guidelines for for the green claims. It's like I think that we are entering the time you have to be cautious what you claim, really. Maybe no somebody will not kind of come to give you a fine for that yet, but I think that, as Katrin said, the honesty, it's like, I understand sometimes the information is a greenwash because people just didn't realize or didn't know enough to publish information. But but then really like yes, you can gain something in a short term, but in a long term, in our information time, it will kind of surface
Yeah.
anyway.
So basically, companies still have a bit of time to get used to reporting, to understand what they're doing regarding environment, social, and governance topics. And then the next step is to make sure that your claims align with what you're actually doing, right?
However, I would like to bring, another side to it. As I mentioned, there is sort of a anti-ESG or certain movement in the world as well, right? And since there has been relatively a lot of discussion around greenwashing, then there is a contra trend which is called green hushing today, where companies do not really dare to talk much at all when it comes to what they do, what they aim for, and so on. And I don't think that's a good trend as well. Because especially if we come back to our market here in the Baltics, for instance, the awareness is not super high yet. So I think if you do something, that's certainly also worth telling about it in order to be of inspiration to other companies and so forth. So the truth is in the middle somewhere.
I agree. Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think in Estonia that's something that happened to the carbon offsetting at some point. Um, Companies were kind of shied away from dealing with it because they weren't sure how reliable it is, and this is maybe also where the regulation that is quite detailed and puts a good framework is giving us solid grounds to not do green hushing, neither do greenwashing, right? So the two extremes should come in the middle and actually tell what we're doing and why we're doing and be clear about that. Because, I mean, what we see today is that the green transition in companies and in countries does make economic sense. It's not only an obligation to comply with regulation. It creates economic value. It gives you better loans from banks. It gives you easier access to investors, to investments. Your big corporate partners, especially when we look at the Scandinavian countries, are definitely expecting that as a basic hygiene, not as a extra thing to be done, right? So yeah, I feel like we have made big steps in the past few years in regulation. Marika, how do you see the role of the state in it? The companies, we know they're struggling. There's more and more solutions on the market, of course, and it's something we cannot start with a perfect system. But how do you see the role of the state evolving in this?
It's a very difficult question. I would say, in a way, I think that in the policy making, like what we hear is like this kind of policy piece, what we call it, and then like tell how it should be done, and it has to be understandable and precise. ESG sustainability is a matter that is in the full development. It's very difficult to give clear messages. I think what the state can really do is like, considering the kind of this development, to give the information and to educate as much as possible. But I think that, while we can give maybe methodologies, then, at the same time, we give like the private sector kind of possibility to build around there. But I think, yeah, it's probably this the message is as clear as possible, but it is complicated considering the involvement that is going on, and I always say that in a way, it's not a matter like where you can kind of look for the perfection, not at this time. We will make mistakes, we will be redoing things, and yeah, we would like to have like comparable and kind of unite things. It will not happen within maybe first 3, 4, 5 years. It's a process, and we kind of have to accept it.
I look at the time and we're running out of time, but I'd like to ask one final question from Katrin. As Marika said very well, it's a new thing for everyone, for states, for companies, for investors, banks, so on. What would you suggest your customers, everyone on the market that's kind of new to the game, how to approach it when I need to make first steps? Where do I start? Do I go to talk to Marika or Eskrid, or what's the best step to be taken?
I'd start from a positive mindset. I fundamentally think ESG is a good thing for our business environment, for how we run businesses, for what type of opportunities arise from that. There is zillion, as we already spoke today. So positive mindset is kind of important in that. Practically do the health check with Eskrid, for instance. And yes, you can of course consult many different partners, but our platform will enable you to understand, where do you stand. If you to tackle it from the more macro perspective, just maybe final words, I think large problems or large transformations, such as this one, really a different way of approaching business management and everything around it, they require all ecosystems to work together. So it's not like a responsibility of a state or a private sector or a third sector. I think the best outcome is if we all sort of contribute to that in terms of solutions and so forth. So I think that's like partnerships is my final word.
That's a very good way to conclude this discussion. It's a new topic. We all have evolving roles in it, but the way to go is to have a positive mindset and to collaborate. Thank you very much, Marika and Katrin, and to all the listeners, thank you very much for listening. We are going to have a new topic, a trend that's driving clean tech, a regulation or other. Listen to us again. It's going to be in 1 month. We'll send out information. You can keep track of what we're doing on Cleantech Estonia, different social media accounts. So tune in next month and let's see you again. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.